Okay, so you've brought us a whole bunch of these weird laws from all over the place.
Yeah.
And we're gonna try to figure out what they're all about, like what they are, where they came from, why they might still even be around. And it's gonna be really fun to just dive in and like unpack all this stuff.
I think it's so interesting to see like how, the things that people cared about or were worried about in the past, like really ended up becoming like official laws.
Right.
And like what seems totally bizarre to us now might have made perfect sense, back then or for a very specific reason or something.
Totally. Yeah. And it makes you think like how many of the laws we have today are going to seem totally weird to people in the future.
Right, exactly.
All right. Well, let's start with the U.S. of A, right? I mean, there are some really interesting laws here, and I think some of them might even surprise you.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. So first up, we have Alabama.
Okay.
And get this. It's against the law to carry an ice cream cone in your back pocket.
Really?
Yeah, I know, right? Like, why would anyone even do that?
I mean, I guess it's possible.
Well, apparently, back in the 1800s, some horse thieves would use ice cream cones to lure horses away.
Oh, wow.
Little sugary bribe, So they made it illegal to stop them.
That's pretty clever, actually.
Yeah, and kind of funny when you think about it.
It is. It's like this very specific, very strange little crime that they felt the need to make a law about.
Right. It's just like such a weird thing to think about. Like, imagine someone getting arrested for having an ice cream cone in their back pocket.
Yeah, it's definitely a different time.
Okay, so moving on to Arizona, we have another strange one. Donkeys are not allowed to sleep in bathtubs.
Wait, what?
I know, right? It sounds ridiculous, but apparently back in the 1920s, a donkey was chilling in a bathtub, and then a flood came and swept it away.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it caused
Wow.
a huge problem, and they had to rescue the donkey, so they made a law to prevent it from happening again.
Okay, I mean, I get it, but it's still so funny to me.
It's like they took this one really weird event and decided to make a law about it.
It does make you wonder how many other laws are based on, like, these random one-time things.
Right. Like, was there a huge rash of bathtub sleeping donkeys that we just don't know about?
Maybe.
All right, so next up, Florida. You're not allowed to sing in public while wearing a swimsuit.
Huh. That's a law.
Apparently, yeah. Although they don't really enforce it anymore.
Okay, thank goodness.
Right. Can you imagine being on the beach singing along to your favorite song and then getting in trouble for it?
It would be so strange.
Yeah, so come on, Florida. Let people have their fun.
It makes you wonder what was going on back then that made them make that law in the first place.
Right. Like, was there some kind of like public swimsuit singing epidemic that we're not aware of?
And maybe it was just a really bad karaoke night gone wrong.
Okay, last stop in the U.S. is Minnesota, and this one is actually a little more sensible.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
So you know those contests where people try to catch a greased pig?
Oh, yeah.
Well, those are illegal in Minnesota. I know, right? It's pretty obvious why that's a bad idea.
Yeah. I mean, it's not very nice to the pig, and it's probably dangerous for the people trying to catch it, too.
Exactly. So this one is actually a law that makes sense for animal welfare and safety.
It's refreshing to see a law that's, like, actually reasonable.
I know, right? All right, so we've covered some pretty weird laws in the U.S., but trust me, it gets even weirder when we go international.
Bring it on. I'm ready for more.
Okay, so let's hop across the pond to Europe, and our first stop is the UK. And they have a law called the Salmon Act of 1986.
The Salmon Act.
Yep. And you're not going to believe this, but it makes it illegal to handle salmon suspiciously.
Suspiciously. Like, what does that even mean?
Right. It's so vague. Like, how do you define handling a fish suspiciously?
I guess it's up to the interpretation of whoever's enforcing the law.
Exactly. So you could be just holding a salmon and someone could accuse you of doing it suspiciously.
That's a bit scary, actually.
Yeah, it's like a law designed to make you paranoid about fish.
But I guess the idea was to stop people from, like, poaching or selling salmon illegally or something.
Yeah, that's what they say, but it's still pretty wild.
It is.
Okay, next we go to Switzerland, land of chocolate and very quiet toilets.
Quiet toilets.
Yeah, so in some apartment buildings, you can't flush the toilet after 10 p.m. because it's considered noise pollution.
Oh, wow. That's dedication to peace and quiet.
Right. Like, you got to really time your bathroom breaks strategically.
Imagine having to hold it in all night because you're afraid of getting in trouble for flushing.
It's like a real-life bladder management game.
But I guess it makes sense if you think about it. Like, people are trying to sleep, and no one wants to be woken up by a flushing toilet.
Yeah, it's definitely a different cultural norm, but I can see how it would be annoying.
It is.
All right, next up, France. And this one is all about food. You ready for this?
Hit me with it.
Ketchup is banned in school cafeterias.
What? No way.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like a culinary crime.
But why?
Well, they say it's to encourage kids to eat more traditional French food.
Oh, I see. Like they don't want them drowning everything in ketchup.
Exactly. They want them to appreciate the flavors of real French cuisine.
I mean, I respect that.
Yeah. It's kind of a bold move, but it shows how seriously they take their food culture.
It does. And you know what? They do make an exception for one thing, though.
What's that?
French fries. You can have ketchup with your fries.
Oh, thank goodness.
Like they know they can't completely deprive people of that classic combo.
Right. It's like a small concession to the ketchup lovers of the world.
Exactly.
Okay, last stop in Europe is Germany, home of the Autobahn. And this one is a little bit more practical, but still kind of strange.
Okay, what is it?
You're not allowed to run out of gas on the Autobahn.
Wait, seriously?
Yep, if you run out of gas, you can get fined.
That seems a bit harsh.
Well, they consider it a preventable mistake and a safety hazard.
I guess that makes sense. It's not like you can't tell when your car's running low on fuel.
Right. It's like they're saying, pay attention to your gas gauge, people.
It's a very German approach to things, isn't it? Like very practical and efficient.
Yeah, no messing around on the Autobahn.
Definitely not.
Okay, so we've conquered Europe now. Let's venture into Asia.
All right, I'm ready for some more legal oddities.
Okay, first up, Japan. And they have a law that's all about waistlines.
Waistlines.
Yep, if you're between the ages of 40 and 74, you have to have your waistline measured every year.
Really? Why?
Well, they're trying to combat obesity.
Oh, I see.
And get this, summer, companies can be fined if their employees are too big around the middle.
Wow, that's a serious incentive to stay in shape.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like they're putting the pressure on companies to make sure their employees are healthy.
It's a very different approach to public health than we see in a lot of other places.
It is. But I guess it's one way to tackle the problem.
It definitely makes you think about the different ways governments can try to influence people's behavior.
All right, next up, China. And this one is pretty unique. Tibetan Buddhist monks need to get permission from the government before they can reincarnate.
Wait, what? That's a thing.
Yep, it's a real law.
That's wild.
I know, right? It's a pretty controversial law, and it basically gives the government control over who gets to be a reincarnated monk.
Wow, that's a lot of power.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal, and it raises a lot of questions about religious freedom.
It definitely does. Like, how do you even regulate something like reincarnation?
It's mind-boggling, right? Okay, last stop in Asia is Singapore, and this one is all about cleanliness.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Singapore is known for being very clean.
Exactly, and one way they maintain that cleanliness is by banning chewing gum.
Really? No chewing gum at all?
No, it's been banned since 1992.
Wow, that's commitment.
Right. They say it's to prevent people from littering and sticking gum everywhere.
I mean, I can see how that would be a problem.
Yeah, and it seems to be working. Singapore's super clean.
It is. It's amazing.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground, but we're not done yet. We still have a few more weird laws to explore from other parts of the world.
Let's do it. I'm ready for more.
Okay, first up, Canada, specifically Petrolia, Ontario. And they have a law about noise pollution, but this one is a little different than the Swiss toilet situation.
Okay, how so?
Well, you're not allowed to whistle or sing loudly between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m.
Oh, so it's like a quiet hours kind of thing?
Exactly. They want to make sure everyone gets a good night's sleep.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah, no late night karaoke sessions in Petrolia unless you're doing it very quietly.
I guess it makes sense. It's all about being respectful of your neighbors.
Right. And it shows that noise pollution is something that people care about in different parts of the world.
It is.
All right, next up, Australia, and specifically Victoria. They had a law that's not really enforced anymore, but it's still pretty funny.
Okay, tell me more.
So back in the day, you could only change a light bulb if you were a licensed electrician.
Seriously? You needed a license to change a light bulb?
Yep, apparently it was all about safety concerns back then.
I guess that makes sense. Electricity can be dangerous.
Yeah, they don't want people messing around with wiring and causing fires.
So you have a very cautious approach to home improvement.
Right. It's like, don't even think about touching that light bulb unless you're a professional.
It's pretty funny, though, when you think about it now. Like, changing a light bulb is such a simple task.
I know, right? It's like a relic of a bygone era.
It is.
Okay, now we head to Mexico, and they have a law about bicycles that's a little unusual.
Okay, I'm all ears.
You have to keep at least 1 foot on the pedals at all times when you're riding a bike.
Huh. So no coasting.
Nope. If you're caught coasting, you can get in trouble.
That seems a bit excessive.
Well, they say it's to prevent people from doing dangerous stunts.
Oh, I see. Like they don't want people showing off and potentially hurting themselves or others.
Exactly. It's all about safety.
It makes you wonder if there were like a bunch of bicycle stunt accidents that led to this law.
Right, like maybe there was a whole era of extreme bicycling that we're not aware of.
Maybe it was like the 19th century version of skateboarding.
Okay, and our final stop on this whirlwind tour of weird laws is Denmark.
All right, bring it on.
Before you drive off in Denmark, you have to check under your car for children.
Really?
Yeah.
Like every single time.
Yep, it's a law.
That's very considerate.
It is, right. It's all about preventing accidents and making sure kids are safe.
I mean, it makes sense. Kids can be unpredictable and you never know where they might be playing.
Exactly. So this law is basically a reminder to drivers to be extra careful.
It's a good reminder.
It is.
So we've seen some pretty bizarre laws from all over the world, but I'm curious, like, why do so many of these laws still exist?
Yeah, that's a good question. And honestly, a lot of them are just leftovers from the past. Like they served a purpose at some point, but now they're just kind of hanging around.
It's like legal clutter.
Right. And sometimes it's just a matter of nobody getting around to officially repealing them.
So they just stay on the books even though nobody really follows them anymore.
Exactly. It's kind of like that junk drawer in your kitchen that you keep meaning to clean out but never do.
I know exactly what you mean.
And sometimes these old laws can even be a little bit useful, like they can serve as a deterrent even if they're not really enforced.
So it's like they're still there just in case.
Right. It's like a little legal reminder that certain behaviors are frowned upon.
I guess that makes sense.
So yeah, it's been a wild ride through the world of weird laws, and honestly, I'm kind of amazed by how many there are out there.
Me too. It's fascinating to see how history and culture and just plain weirdness can all come together to create these strange rules.
It really makes you think about how the laws we have today might seem to people in the future.
Exactly, like what will they think of our obsession with social media or our self-driving cars?
I don't even want to imagine.
But it's fun to think about.
It is, and thanks to your curiosity, we've gotten to explore all these fascinating legal oddities from around the globe.
It's been a blast.
It has, and who knows, maybe this deep dive will inspire you to do some digging into the history of laws in your own community.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, you never know what kind of strange and surprising rules you might uncover.
Exactly, and maybe you'll even find some inspiration for a new law of your own.
All right, well, that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep exploring the world in all its weird and wonderful ways.
And keep those back pockets free of ice cream cones.
Yeah, that's good advice.